Joining me today is Casey Meraz. Casey is the founder of Juris Digital, an online marketing company that focuses on helping law firms grow their business. He has an in-depth understanding on the workings of law firms due to his over 10 years of working experience, helping them sign more cases. He's focused on not just ranking better, but also converting those leads, potential leads, into new cases by optimizing their intake process. Casey has also contributed to sites like Meraz, BrightLocal, WhiteSpark, and much more. Thanks for having this chat with me today, Casey.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Perfect. So I know you're busy. I'll get right into it and start off with tell some of the listeners a little bit about yourself, your journey, how you started your agency, and what do people know you by today?
Sure. So yeah, I guess I could back up a little bit here. I'm kind of a serial entrepreneur. I've always been interested in business. In fact, I started my first business when I was 15, and it was a paintball supply store out of my parents' basement. And that didn't last, so learned some lessons there, which was cool. But over the years, I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit. And then when I was a little bit older, I actually started a computer repair company because I found myself getting into technology and wireless internet. And so I built that for a few years, also learned some lessons there. And that's kind of how I fell into SEO, because I was doing websites for clients as a sideline of the computer repair business. And basically what had happened is I brought on some partners, and that didn't work out very well as I had thought, which is something I hope to touch on later. But at that point, I was recruited by Intuit, the maker of QuickBooks. And at that time, they were kind of in a unique situation where they were acquiring companies that did small business services. So website building companies. And one of the areas they wanted to get into at that time was SEO. And they didn't have an SEO program, and they weren't going to acquire an SEO company. So they basically brought me on and said, hey, can you help us figure this out? And so I helped build that program from the ground up for Intuit, for their small business division. And then it wasn't long after that where I got the itch again, and I realized, hey, I could do this for my own clients. Let me do it myself. And that's where my company came from.
No, that's amazing. So how long were you at Intuit? And is that what you studied in school?
Oh, interesting question. So I was at Intuit for 2 years, but that's not what I studied in school. In school, I started in film and television production.
Okay.
I always liked the idea of crafting a story, and directing was kind of my passion at one point. And then that actually transitioned into more of the criminal justice side, way out of left field. But you'll see how that ties into Juris Digital here a little bit. So
amazing. So you mentioned you been working with your own agency for over 10 years. Did you go after all different forms of niches and industries before you focused on just a law niche?
Yeah, so when I started off, I started under the brand name Ethical SEO Consulting. And I did that because even at that time, there were a lot of goons in the industry selling snake oil. And at the time, I was like, hey, I'll work with anybody. So I worked with dentists and doctors, lawyers, small businesses, brick and mortar. I always had a passion for helping and giving, though. And so small business has always been at the heart of what I do. And so that's why I started that way, just helping everybody.
And then what made you really focus and niche down to one vertical?
Well, for me, it was about success and making sure that we could replicate what we did for our clients. I found that, as a practitioner or as a person, I want to help everybody. I want to do the best for everybody that I can, but I'm also not capable of doing that. I learned probably the hard way. And when you're growing an agency and trying to help people, the processes change from an e-commerce store to a brick and mortar to a lawyer. And with lawyers, I actually found them the most interesting to work with because it was so competitive, which is one of the reasons I love SEO in general. And they were just great clients for us, and we could scale those processes a little bit more and make that more repeatable and definitely get better results when we're more focused.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, all those are really good things that you mentioned, because even in my agency, I've been doing it for over 6 years, and I'm starting to realize I can't be it for every single type of business, but I do love to help every single industry, right? So I find it very interesting to help every single client because there's a new story. It's not like the same kind of industry, right? So you're trying to learn keyword research, figure out their competitors. It's always different and unique, right? I know in the law field, there's a lot of different subcategories. Like there's criminal, there's business, there's personal injury, there's family, civil. So it's interesting in that perspective. And you have to really know your clients as well, right? So
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. There's even an opportunity in my business to niche down further because, they are different: criminal, family, personal injury. Yeah. And we've worked a lot in the personal injury space. And that's where there's it's very competitive. A lot of people are wasting money in there too. So
no, I totally agree. So I know you mentioned you kind of started your business as doing it with Intuit and then doing your own agency, but were there anyone that kind of pushed you, or was there, people that inspired you to become your own boss, or how did you have that itch of starting your own business?
Sure. Well, like I said, I've always been like entrepreneurial, been in that mindset. So something I've always wanted to do and something that I keep finding myself coming back to. But, I found, and one of the big things I would say one of the drivers is, working in the big corporate machine. It's completely different. And I didn't have that freedom. And so one of the big drivers for me and inspiration was being able to have that freedom for my family and also create something that really fulfilled that urge. So it's not necessarily that there was, one specific person or anything like that, more of just like this inner urge to create this lifestyle for myself.
Amazing. So when you started, did you have to go out and find your own clients, or did you kind of have a pool of potential clients that you kind of networked and built relationships with?
Yeah, so I started off with one client that I had because I was working with them. I was living in California at the time, and this was after I had left Intuit, and I had started working with them, and that's when I really saw the opportunity. But what I found is, I did want to grow my own business, but I knew SEO took time doing it myself. And that's something that I always lived and practiced and preach, and we still do to this day. But to get the ball rolling, what I did is I started free meetups. And so I had all this knowledge. I'm not sharing it with anybody. I write blog posts. I start writing a little bit for Meraz to get my name out there. So I contributed a lot to their blog and their local SEO series. And then, basically I would host these meetups locally here in Denver where I'd buy people beer and basically just send the message out and say, hey, come and learn about SEO or how I can help you, things that you can do to help yourself, your own business. Again, I'll buy the beer, just show up to this class. And those were free, and we had great attendance. And, week after week when we would do them, the attendance would grow, people were happy. And I found that not only built a reputation for us as givers, but also, those people, some of them, they could see that we knew what we were talking about, and they wanted to hire us at that point. They wanted us to do that work for them because they realized it wasn't, their area of expertise.
No, that's amazing. I mean, and that's one thing that a lot of business owners have to understand. The more you give and don't expect anything in return, the more you're going to get in return. And it's really karma, right? It's all about doing what's right and spreading the word, right? And not just doing it on a blog, because a blog is not as personable as a live interaction and building real relationships with real people, right?
Yeah, one of the challenges there too is the finding that, I guess, border that you don't want to cross, because you do want to give away this information. I really have that passion. I want to help people, but there is also a point where you can go too far and almost devalue yourself, as well. So you do have to strike that balance.
Yeah, definitely. I think what I've been trying to do is educate people as much as possible, and then give them options, right? I don't really sell. It's more about the more informed you are, the more educated of a decision you're going to make on whatever choices you decide to do. You can work with whatever agency, but as long as you know what you're getting yourself into and what they're doing, at least you're more informed, right? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, we have the same philosophy there, and that's, I've published books and I've written and I continue to write to this day and share that information. And, that's the same way for us. Like people that even reach out to us, they might talk to 10 other companies, but they usually tell us we're the most informative, because if there's one mission or drive that I think I have, it is really educating people to at least not make bad decisions and hurt themselves, because you can do that, as you know.
Exactly. Awesome. So growing up, was this kind of a dream of yours? Like, I know you've had an itch, right? But being an entrepreneur, success, your purpose kind of thing. What was it when you were kind of in your teens to starting your business?
Yeah, I think my drive has changed a little bit, in different phases of life as we experience different things. And when I was younger, I wanted to make movies and, be a director, tell stories. And so that's kind of where I pursued initially. But again, it was really, I think what I really wanted to is that freedom. And that's been something that's consistent with me throughout my whole career. It's something I've always valued, even over money. And, now my drive, is family. I have a young child and a wife and another kid on the way. And, getting to have a lifestyle where I can spend as much time with them, travel the world with them. It's just really refreshing, and it enables me also to be creative and figure out, how can I help more people and not get stuck in these like mental ruts, which is something, being an entrepreneur, you can feel a little isolated sometimes.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, now that technology allows you to just do everything at your fingertips, right? So it's very hard to get out. So you do still need to experience the world, travel, and build relationships. And I don't know if you continue doing those networking events or not, or speaking, but I continually try to make it out as much as possible, just to get, maybe you might not be going to network with others, but just to stay present and continue that whole motion of, being active, right?
Sure. Mm-hmm. And that's something, I still definitely do whenever I get the opportunity to. And, I'm happy to share that information and, speak at different conferences and network with people and help people and mentor other people too, so that they don't have to go through the same hurdles, that I've been through.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everyone makes mistakes, right? Running a business or having an agency. And it's okay as long as you don't give up, right? That's a big thing. And a lot of people who hit that wall, like the first wall or a couple walls, they kind of just give up, right? And say it's not for me. But the ones that have been in it for 10, 20 years, they have that willpower of succeeding, right?
Sure. Yeah, exactly. And speaking about roadblocks, and sometimes you can be your own biggest roadblock. It's important to put that in perspective and make sure that you know your weak points, and don't stop yourself. But I do think, a lot of people, they face a challenge and it gets too tough, or there's a financial issue or whatnot, and then they have to exit their opportunity. And there's other ways to do that. And I think technology has really improved, where people have more options than ever, where they can start this side hustle now, and help build this company without totally risking all their financial security up front. So I don't know, it's kind of a new world, but there's always, if you're in business, it's always going to ebb and flow, right? It's never going to be just 100% ups, which I think is what sometimes people see maybe when they're looking at your Instagram pictures or whatnot.
Well, that's the thing about social as well, right? They follow some influencers and they talk about all the great things about success and what it can result in, but no one really talks about the struggles and the pitfalls and the challenges and what you need to really go through, right? And it's funny because I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs and they're like, this is my first business and I want to rank on Google in a month because I'm better than them. Or I'm like, or whatever, like 6 months or a year. And I'm like, all right, let's sit back and, walk it through, right? But they're not really thinking as a business owner, right? Like a real business owner has to really, you spent so much time in school, but as a business, you don't really focus on that analysis or due diligence, right? And everyone just wants speed because they see other people having great success.
And I think that's a common track or mindset that people approach business with too, because if you're like me, I started business as the practitioner, like, oh, I'm good at this skill, so let me start a business. And running a business is nothing like that. In fact, it's a complete mindset and culture shift that you have to be aware of. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck. You're going to get stuck. It's a hard lesson to learn.
Yeah. So in terms of your business, did you have to pivot over the years, change direction? And how about like, did you have to hire a coach or a mentor, or has there been people that kind of guide you along the ways over the years?
Sure. Yeah. Well, starting off first as far as pivoting goes, we started again servicing all types of businesses, and then we niched down into lawyers. And at that point, we're just doing basically organic SEO. What I'd say, local and organic. And then, we found a need that we're working with a lot of clients that have websites that suck, and it's really hindering their performance. So then we just kind of, not necessarily pivoted, but brought on another service offering, which was in-house dev and design and dev, to just kind of complete that circle. So today, we're doing pay-per-click, we're doing SEO, we're doing design and dev and content all in-house. And the only direction that we pivoted was to legal. And right now we're servicing all law firms. I see an advantage to pivoting further, niching down further into just personal injury law firms, kind of how we started our bread and butter, because that would allow me to be even more effective, I feel, for my clients, and really, systemize those processes. And as far as the coach goes, like inherently, maybe just like initially when I started off, I was cocky and, stupid is probably the best way to say it. And I wasn't really one, I wasn't humble. I didn't listen to a lot of outside advice, and that has definitely changed over the years. In fact, if you want to shortcut your success, probably the best thing you could do is hire a coach or a mentor. And so I've worked with different ones over the years, and it's another search that I'm on to now, because we've reached this goal and now we're just trying to aim further. How do we build this, 8-figure agency now? And so it's just trying to get there. And I absolutely value that feedback. I hire people. And I think as I learn more, I'm more and more willing to just get the right people to give me the right advice, because I see that it's going to pay off 10 or 100 times fold.
And I think once you kind of realize, like, you can't do everything, you focus on what you're good at, and there's a lot of other things that you're not good at. Hire people that can be passionate and love that part of that business that you're not good at, right? And they'll do a way better job, and you don't have to stress over it, right? Especially in even SEO, there's so many aspects of it, like from content to links to, reviews to everything, right? Like, you need to have people that are really focused on certain aspects and really be good at it, right? Just like, and I look at like business overall, right? Like not just the marketing digital space, but like, what about accounting? What about like operations? What about, HR? What about like team gatherings and all these things? Like as a business owner, you really have to think about all these aspects, right? Not just your core service offering or product that you're offering.
And it's funny because it might seem counterintuitive, but when you start thinking about those other things is really when you start to grow, because you can focus on what's best and have the right people on your team and the right people in the bus seats, right, that are working towards those things that you're not so good at, that need to get done the right way. Otherwise, you're just going to face more problems in the future.
Yeah. And I think the big thing is, as a business owner, you think you can do everything.
Yeah.
The sooner you realize that you can't do everything, the sooner you have better sleep, you don't lose your hair. Like, so I've kind of done all that. But yeah, like once you are in it, you just have to let go too, right? Like you have to realize, like, yes, you're the owner, founder, you're the one who started, but there's really good, smart people that are willing to help, right? And throughout this journey, you just have to find the right people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny how your mindset changes, too, as you learn. I think at one point, just to give an example, hey, maybe we were sending too much content out, we're spending too much money. So we thought, okay, let's bring that in-house and hire those people. That's one way of thinking. And now my current train of thought is like, oh, should we acquire a company that does that? to get their customers. And, focusing on it from a business perspective is totally different from that practitioner standpoint. So you learn so much. And if you get the right mentors for your right stage, you're really going to excel.
Yeah. And that's a great way to really scale as well, right? You have some money, you buy a business with a book of business that you can offer additional services that can increase revenue. And right off the bat, your books look amazing, right? So it's great to have these kind of conversations because you understand what, your goals are, right? Like your goals are different now than just being the one doing all the work. Right? As a business owner, you have so many more responsibilities, right?
Exactly. But I also won't say that I'm perfect. I do get dragged into the weeds sometimes from my own doing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the best part, right? Especially if that's what your passion is. Like you love the SEO component. Mm-hmm. Focus on doing some of that still, right? But if you're not really good at managing people, find someone that actually is, right?
Yeah.
So it's less stressful on your end, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of some of the challenges that you kind of faced over the years and mistakes, can you share some of them to our audience members?
Yeah, I mean, how many hours do you have? Yeah, so no, I've definitely made a lot of mistakes over the years. And I mean, where to start here? I mean, well, one is definitely, working as a practitioner in the business versus working on the business. I think that's a big one that most entrepreneurs face. At usually an early stage, and they have to understand the difference there. But I've made plenty of mistakes. Other ones just thinking about when I started my business, I was like, hey, what's the easiest way to do this? Oh, look, I have some friends. Let me have them work for me. Okay, I'm going to pay them, and then maybe even giving away a little bit of equity. And that was the problem that I'm getting to here. One of the mistakes is making sure you have the right people. It's really great to reward great people, but don't give away the farm either. And that's a mistake I think that I made by hiring friends and giving them a sweat equity in my company to something that I had to buy them out later, essentially. So that was kind of a big one that just came to mind when you brought that up.
Yeah. I mean, it's good to learn though, right? Some of these mistakes that you've done, mm-hmm. It's like not really, gonna close your business. Like it's not gonna end your business. It's hurdles, right? And people go through it all the time. Like I started my agency as a sales and marketing person. I had no idea what the heck SEO was about, right? But I saw an opportunity and there was a need, and I kind of just figured it out that there's people that want this service. I gotta find people to do the work, and I'm pretty much the person that is the face of the company, right?
Sure.
So it was a little different than you doing the work yourself, right? And people start businesses for all different reasons, right? And ultimately, I just wanted to help business owners. I found that there were a lot of them that were just frustrated with other forms of advertising and just not getting good ROI, right? So starting an ethical business is just trying to do good, right? Building strong relationships that people can trust and being honest, transparent. That's ultimately what my core values are running my agency.
Sure, yeah. And I think another one too that those are great core values. Another one that came to mind too when I was just thinking about this was always watch your expenses and things too, because one thing that you can do, and this is kind of, I could go off on a tangent on this as well, but you want to make sure you have solid accounting in place, and you want to make sure you're always watching your expenses so you're not nickel and diming yourself to death. I think entrepreneurs also get in this trap where they're like, hey, I made more money. Oh, it's okay for me to spend on this now. They're not really forecasting for those ebbs and flows, or what happens if your biggest client leaves. And that brings up another lesson where, at one point we had a client that was over 25% of our revenue when we first started, and that we did end up parting ways. And that was obviously a big impact for us. And so now I advise people, obviously stay under 10% and make sure you manage that effectively and have all of those, and just make sure you're planning properly, and don't spend money unless you have to, but make sure you're paying yourself too. It's another one. Anyway.
Oh yeah. All these are really good tips. But it's hard, right? Like when you're first starting and you're trying to have a business, like you don't even know if this is going to be a successful business or not, right? Like you're running in the red, you're you're scrambling with your head chopped off. You're working 18-hour days or 16-hour days just to get by, right? And hopefully you have a strong support system with your significant other or whatever it is, right? Like it's just hard, right? And my biggest thing is there's a lot of people there to support you and help you if you ask.
Yeah.
Because the challenge is every business owner thinks they can do everything themselves. But the sooner you realize that you can't, and this is what I learned over the years too, I now delegate more than ever, and I sleep really well now. And, you know, and I'm actually loving what I'm doing, right? Like you get to a point where you're like, why am I doing all this for all this trouble when you can easily just hire people to do some of the stuff that you hate doing?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, you might not have the same margin, but it's okay because you can sleep very well at night.
Yeah, with the proper, foundation, you can even work on that margin. Like, I don't know if you follow or have heard of the profit first mentality, but that's definitely something that I've adopted to more recently. And, really the principle there is you're getting money and you're separating it to where you're spending it in a sense of where it needs to go. But first, you are paying yourself. And I think if I could go back 10 years, that's what I tell myself on day one is, make sure that I'm paying myself. It's also going to help you make sure your pricing's right, of course, for your service offerings. It's going to fix a lot of things. But yeah, foundation and not being afraid to seek advice. I think you're so right on that. I think sometimes people, they see you go off on your own and they're like, oh, well, he must be doing so well. He has his own business and this and that. And then because that framework is set, sometimes you can be afraid to discuss the reality of the business. Well, things aren't going so well this month, or I might go out of business in 30 days or whatever that was, in those earlier days. So having people to talk to and telling them, how they are, asking how they can help you and asking for that support is very crucial, and people will help you.
I think the biggest challenge is your friends don't understand what you're going through as a business owner.
Exactly.
Because they're, usually they have their own 9-to-5 job. They just don't get it. So trying to connect with people that are in the same situation as you, entrepreneurs running their own business, going through some of the challenges and hurdles. And yeah, maybe they've been doing it for X amount of years further than you, but those are the people you want to connect with, right? That are kind of in your situation.
Yeah, that's huge, because I think that's how it becomes isolating is, you try to talk to your friends about it. They can't relate. They don't want to talk about it. They might think all you talk about is business and it's boring to them. So yeah, connecting and being with the right people makes all the difference.
Oh yeah, totally. So in terms of advice, I know you mentioned some of your mistakes, and you did mention some of the advice as like pay yourself first, right? When you first started, it was, and I remember like how tough it was, right? Getting clients to actually pay, like getting hard to say no to clients. Like I was taking everything on, and I soon realized like they're not my tribe. They're not my type of clients, right? And I had to cut, and now I have a very strong screening process. And if they are not a good fit, I don't even want to pursue. Like, you get to a point where they're going to waste your time more so than actually you want to help them, right?
Yeah, no, and I think that you touched on something that all agency owners, kind of get themselves into. It's important to have that value and set that for yourself and make sure you know what clients you want to work with. Because what you don't realize is you might be thinking, oh, well, I'm going to make this extra $1,000 or $2,000 by taking on this client. Really, you're not, because of all the time that's going to go into that managing that difficult relationship. You're losing money, and that opportunity cost for that big client or sacrificing work on your big accounts, that's huge. So I think that that's a trap. And I think a good mindset to think about is if they're not your ideal client, they never were a client. They're not even a potential to be a client. So you can't think of that as, oh, I lost a client. You have to think of that as, no, they just weren't a good fit for me, and move on. So.
Even starting off, like the ideal customer persona that you kind of create, it might be different, right? Because over the years, you may slowly adapt and figure out who these clients are, right? Until you're in it, you don't really know, right? And as much analysis and business case that you've built, you really have no idea.
And that's, there is something to be said there though, too. That's an opportunity for entrepreneurs to really shortcut, at least to some extent, what they're working on. If you've niched down and you know who your clients are, you need to talk to them. You need to figure out what their pain points are. And you need to talk to you need to learn what's consistent and solve those problems. And if you're spending that type of time in those weeds, you're going to get a little bit of a jump start. So that's definitely a piece of advice. Talk to your customers. You can build these personas, and again, they might be wrong, but the more that you talk to, the more honed in you're going to get in, and find your right ideal clients.
Yeah, I was very fortunate, and this is how I started a business, right? Like working at Yellow Pages, I had a book of business of 1,000 clients, right? Every time I talked to them, they gave me the same consistent issue and problem, right? So that's where I developed and understood these are my type of clients. They have a good price point where they're spending and just frustrated. So I had to come up with a solution, right?
Yeah.
But I was very fortunate. I was able to work at a corporation that allowed me to, work with a lot of business owners, right? So a lot of these new entrepreneurs, they don't even work at a company to understand what trouble points and pain points there are. They just have an idea, right? So, and yeah, you might be very successful with that in mind. Like, but the learning curve might be taking you a little bit longer, right? Versus someone that's actually worked in it, in that industry, learn the ropes, learn the system, processes, what needs to be done. And maybe that's my fault too. I've never worked at an agency outside of a big corporation, and I had no idea how it worked. So it was like, you going in, doing the SEO yourself. I came in as a sales and marketing guy, but we still ended up owning our own agency, right? So there's a different, people go through their own journey, right? And whatever works for you, great. And everyone has their own learning curve, right?
Yeah. And I think, people just need to figure out their own journey and figure out, what fits best for them. I think in almost all cases, though, one of the things that people need to do is find somebody that you can really trust that is like, if you're like me, for example, like ADD, kind of, I small repetitive tasks, not my thing, but find somebody that's good at running operations. Find that director of operations to help you build your business, and make sure to delegate, kind of like you were saying earlier too, get that stuff off your plate to somebody that you can trust that can help you build the business. If there's something you're not good at, there's somebody out there that is good at that and probably likes to do that. And the more that you can do that, I think the more successful you'll be. And that even comes down to, I was talking about director of operations, but just like even like a life pro tip, right? Like I'm embarrassed to say this, I don't do my own laundry. We send our laundry out, more time reaching my goals, spending time with my kids and my wife. And that's what allows us to travel and stuff too. Just finding those little things that you shouldn't be doing, and then delegating those responsibilities.
Yeah, as a business owner, the sooner you realize what your strengths are and you love doing it, and you can earn a lot more money doing what you love, and get rid of all those tasks and tedious stuff that you just hate and grudge and, are stressed about, the happier you're going to be, right? Like, it's hard to tell business owners this, but you don't have to know everything. You don't need to learn and know, do everything either, right? Like, but again, the always the big hurdle is I can't afford it, or I can't, do this at this time, which is fair, right? Like every business owner has to go through that hurdle to eventually have enough revenue to kind of start hiring others, right?
Sure. And as you're building your business, that's harder. And that's probably why, in some senses, I think, well, you can't afford not to, but obviously if there's no, money coming in, you got to get there. And I think the way that I did that was actually adopting this kind of mindset. And even though I couldn't afford a full-time staff member when I first started, I could afford a part-time assistant to do some things that, were easily trainable, and sending that out and starting there, getting that off my plate, freeing up my time to focus on the revenue generating activities. And so that's got to be, key when you're starting out, especially if you're bootstrapping.
No, exactly. Those are really good tips. So what has really changed over the years in terms of how you started your agency to now? Like, has there been a lot of advances in software that you use currently, tools. I know you run an agency, so there's a lot of software and tools for just the SEO industry. But in terms of business in general, like I use a lot of like the Google G Suites. I use a lot of the Drives, the Dropbox, the Zoom meetings. I use a lot of the Slacks and everything that agencies use. But in terms of business, has there been anything that kind of helped you streamline some of the repetitive stuff to make
Yeah,
you work more efficient?
from the business side, definitely. And that was something that I actually kind of started the agency with too, is as soon as I heard about it, we switched to a company called FreshBooks for our invoice and billing. You know, cash flow is key in an agency. So if you're running an agency and you don't have a good handle on cash flow, then that's a problem. So one of the things we try to do is set people up on recurring billing. And back in the day, FreshBooks allowed us to do that. Now you can do that with Stripe, you can do it Braintree, you can do it whoever you want to use, really. But that reoccurring billing, setting up, was really crucial, I think, to us, and from a business operations standpoint. And then also, just to touch on a side note of that real quickly, is making sure that if you're building out a project, instead of doing like half up front and half when completed, we do like half up front and half and like the other half in 60 days. If it's going to be a longer project, it's going to take 90 days or something. Again, predictable cash flow. So that's why I bring that up. But yeah, FreshBooks was definitely a big one for us. We use all the business tools, Slack, G Suite. Basecamp is still our project management software. Very simple, but very easy. Not a lot of a learning curve. A new thing technology-wise that we're getting into right now is Trainual. If you ask 10 SEO people what they know about SEO, they might all say they know a lot, and I'll tell you 10 different things. So the learning curve from people in this industry is just all over the place. People know different things, and they're kind of a jack of all trade, or they specialize in content or whatever. So Trainual is something that we're using to really build up our processes and rapidly train new staff members. So we're not there yet where I want to be, but that's one of the goals, is basically replacing our old antiquated knowledge base with this a formal structured training program that will really help us, get people up to speed.
I think that's the key, the processes that you have to kind of develop early, and put it into whatever it is. It could be your training, or it could be any platform that people are just familiar with, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people just use the Word doc and it works fine. Excel, right? Whatever works for everyone, right? It doesn't have to be anything complex, but as a business owner, you want to grow your business and you have to have systems and processes in place, right? Because whenever you hire someone, interview them, hire them, you got to put them through a 1-2 weeks training. And if you have that regimen of, hopefully after 2 weeks, they are now going to do these certain tasks, then you feel comfortable that after 3 months or a couple months, they're going to be up to speed, right? With everything.
Yeah. And, just a couple other technology points to talk on too. We use a software called Better Proposals to send our proposals. We can create templates that we do small modifications to. It allows people to sign them. So we get the digital signature online. We get the payment online. That'll integrate with like Stripe, for example. So, that's a big efficiency, Better Proposals. And then another one too, just talking about training again, there's a browser plugin. You can use Loomly, or there's another one that I can't think of, Soapbox from Wistia, I think. And if I want, it used to be like, hey, I'm going to type up this training or whatever. If I know something, I can just hit a button in my browser now, record a short video, and then throw that into Trainual. So now we have a process created with some training, in a matter of minutes.
That's amazing. So using technology for your advantage, right? And a lot of people are scared of technology. And there's a lot of things to be said about this as well. Like, whatever your comfort zone is, because as a business owner, some people are just not tech savvy, right? They just do their thing. They have their bricks and mortar. They're a dentist. They just love doing what they do, right?
Yep.
So don't be afraid, but be open to things that can help you scale or be way more productive and efficient, right? Because there is a lot of tools out there. Just be on the lookout, right? Like, there are things that can really help, but if you're not comfortable, then it's hard, right? Like, it's hard to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you have to be open to it, and it'll make your life so much easier if you are.
Yeah. The challenge is the adoption as well. So if you're doing it, it's fine. But then if your staff are not really comfortable, then it's very difficult as well, right?
Yeah, adoption's always been a key. There's a new project management system I want to switch to, but we haven't been able to because it just the legwork involved of getting all the buy-in and having people implement it. But we're getting there. So that's, definitely a challenge I can relate to.
Yeah, definitely. So I know you touched on like networking events earlier on, right? Where you set up all these meetup groups and you were giving. A lot of people starting off a business, they don't have the funds and they don't have that kind of mindset that they're going in for the purpose of trying to educate people or giving, right? They go into a networking event giving out business cards, looking for business, right? What would you say on that front? Because obviously you know something that a lot of other people don't know because you did it the right way, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of business owners, every networking event you go to, it's the same real estate agents, insurance people, brokers, it's the same people, right?
Yeah.
What do you have to say about that? Because obviously they didn't, go through your training.
Yeah, I have a couple different schools of thought on that. But one is, when I first started my computer repair company before this, how I started was getting in the community and going and paying for these networking events in some cases. And yeah, you would be expected to bring a referral and they would hopefully give you some and that type of thing. Those type of arrangements I've never been a big fan of. They haven't worked too well for me. But that being said, going to networking events in general can be very good. And the best thing to do when you're there is talk to people, and tell them what you're looking for. Hopefully you can give something to them too. It's really about giving if you can. If you have nothing to give, just meeting people, telling them what you're doing is fine. And making connections and showing people who you are. Because, again, if you meet somebody at this networking event, maybe they know somebody that, needs what you're providing and they might be willing to introduce you. So just be yourself, be open, tell people how you're going to, help them if you go to these networking events and what you plan on doing. And, but some of the structured ones, yeah, I've never been a big fan of.
Yeah, the challenge too, I find, is as a business owner, there's a lot of different personalities, right? There's the ones that are extroverts or introverts. And introverts are very, they just hate that social environment. It's not comfortable for them to go out and introduce people or even talk to people in a social setting, right? So I get it. I'm luckily, my background has always been sales and marketing. So I'm all about just going out and introducing myself and letting people know what I do. But there's a lot of people who's just not comfortable. So they stick with what they're comfortable with, which is forums and blogs and that, right? Like just digital or just social or whatever it may be. It's also another way to network. I mean, as long as you're looking to attract people in that same sort of tribe and you're giving advice, no matter what, don't try to take things right away. The more you give, even on these different forums, the more you're going to receive.
I agree. Yeah. Don't go into a networking event trying to sell, really. What you're going there to is really to educate and, get people to know about you. And yeah, you can definitely do that online. And there's plenty of resources and ways to do that online. Reddit, especially if you're niched in, no matter what you're doing, you're going to find an online community of your ideal customers. So
yeah, even like Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups, there's so many different places, but you have to be open to it and you have to go out and look for it yourself, right? Like
exactly, you got to put a network.
As a business owner, like if you're hungry and you need business, you got to go out there and sell, right? Why are people going to want to buy from you? You got to figure out how to, touch them to a point where you're satisfying their need, right? Or you're helping them somehow. So
exactly, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So currently, I know you have a child and your wife is expecting. So what continues to drive you to become who you are? Like, I know you mentioned you have these huge, lofty goals for your industry, your business, but what keeps you going? Because as an agency owner myself, it's stressful and there's challenges that, every day is never going to be the same, right? Like there's always things that just come up and you just got to deal with it, right? Like how do you stay focused?
Sure. Well, I mean, I've definitely had my my ups and downs, but some of the things that really resonate with me are I have a great team right now, and I have great people, and I want them to have a good quality of life. So that's something that I always keep in mind, and something that I've always kept in mind when I started my business. I didn't want people to overwork. And then two, obviously for me too, I want to make sure that I have complete freedom. And for me, it's been fun growing to this point, but I kind of have a second win in a sense. And I really want to take it to the next level because I think that we're a great place to work. I think we can help people, give them that good quality work-life balance. And I think that we can help the most, law firms as possible as well, if we really, focus in and continue to get the right people and scale up. And I can do both of these things while maintaining a very good quality of life. So like right now, I love traveling with my son. He's 18 months old now. And my wife and him, we just got back from a 2-month European vacation. He's been to 10 countries. There's nothing else that I can do that'll give me this flexibility. And there's different ways to look at it. One is like, hey, I can do this myself in like a consulting type gig and probably still have that. But then I feel like I'm not helping as many people. My time is limited. And I'm not helping these great people that are helping me build this company. And I feel like I owe them something too. So, that really drives me.
I think that's a really good point you're mentioning, because the people who got you to this level right now, you got to take care of them, right? They're your people, your tribe. And if you treat them well and your staff are your family, they're going to treat your clients as well or even better, right? So it's all about that whole structure of the values, right? And it's kind of a ripple effect, right? So whatever you kind of push on your team, your clients, whatever, they understand where they're getting, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And, they all care, and I can tell. And that's like one of the really cool things is when you spend a little bit of time focusing on culture and building out something, everybody wants to help each other. There's no negative thoughts or any of that stuff that can happen in companies. And, it's really encouraging to see everybody work together towards common goals.
That's amazing. No, that's, you're building something great when your employees don't leave or your clients don't leave, right? And they're sending good referrals, right? Mm-hmm. So I love the fact that when clients send a referral, that means it just reaffirms that I'm doing something correctly and I'm actually, helping business grow, right? Like,
exactly. That's the best compliment you can get.
Exactly. Right. And it's great. It's better than, honestly, there's a lot of things that I'm kind of moving towards now. Like I'm all about just giving. I'm doing a lot of mentoring. I'm doing more speaking. I'm helping more and provide more of an impact, right? Because I love just helping people, right? And you have to understand as a business owner, this is the whole point of running a business, right? Like for you to impact a larger group than just an employee where you're kind of isolated to do only one task, right, at a company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. And, one thing I just wanted to touch on too about the employee happiness thing, I didn't just like start off in this like bubble where everybody's like was always happy. And I was just thinking about that after I said that employee number 3, I think 3 or 4. Anyway, I had to fire him because we had such a bad culture. There was so much gossip going on. It was the complete opposite of what we have today. So, there's been a lot of lessons. Again, I've told you I failed a lot that I've learned the hard way. But I just wanted to bring that up, that it's always a learning journey.
Oh, definitely. And you have to make some hard decisions growing when you're growing your business. But as long as you're making decisions and you're very confident and you're, with intent, right? The big thing is, what your values are. And if there's rules that were ingrained and people are breaking them, you have to be forceful and really let people know these are the core values. Figure that out and really ingrain it in people, right? Mm-hmm. I've been able to retain a lot of the staff, but early on, I didn't know who were my tribe, right? Like my type of people. So I had to learn as well. So. Sure.
Yeah. And I mean, and people are probably the hardest part of any business, right? Because there's so many relationships in a sense to manage. But if you're doubting that you have the right people on board, that's something that you need to explore and dive deeper in, because if you ever think things are going to be better keeping on somebody that's dragging everybody else down or creating a lot of friction in the office, or they're going to be too hard to replace, that's the wrong mindset. You need to get yourself out of there and really realize how much things are going to get better when you get the right people in the right roles.
Yeah, a couple things that kind of just came up. Um, I remember a couple of clients actually I had to fire because they were really blaming or really upset with some of the staff members I had, right? So I back my staff members 100% all the time, right?
Yeah.
And I don't mind firing customers because they they don't understand what we go through, right?
Sure. Mhm.
And you know your staff better than anyone else. So when they start saying things that are bad or they doubt you or whatever, the interactions that you've had with that person, and I'm like, unfortunately, I just fire them because when people are saying things that are bad about your staff or employees, it should never happen, right?
Yeah. Mhm. It shouldn't. And yeah, that'll really kill the culture, So I mean, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people, like a lot of business owners will take the side of the employee because you were taught that the client's always right, right?
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
in reality, are they? Right? Yeah, so what? They pay you, and yeah, some of the stuff is monetary, but really, is it worth that client if they're that type of personality, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly. It's really more of like make them feel they're right unless they get to what you're talking about, that type of situation. And then you definitely want to part ways. At least that's the way that I've approached it.
yeah, but you get good and bad in terms of clients, right? And you
Yeah. Mhm.
probably go through all of them, all different personalities.
Mhm.
So yeah, aside from business now, so it seems like you have your family, you travel a lot. Your health is probably one of the pillars as well. Community, religion. How do you focus on your business when there's so much going on?
Sure. Well, for some reason, I find it easier than ever to focus on my business. And that's probably because of delegation, at this point, is that I'm not really involved in the day-to-day operations of my company anymore. More of just that direction side of things. So, that's definitely helped a lot. But it's important to me to give time, wherever we feel necessary. And my wife and I, we like to give back, and we like to support our friends and family too, and give back to the community. But yeah, I never feel like I don't have enough time, at least at this stage in life. I'm sure that's about to change with one more child on the way. But
Well, it's the best, part of living, right? Having another person that you have to take care of, right? So
yeah.
time management is so critical when you're running a business. You have family, you have other obligations, but it seems like you're on the right track because you've been in a business for over 10 years and you're still very passionate and you love what you're doing. So something is right.
Yeah, no, and again, I've really been more excited here recently, and and it's just kind of like the next journey for me because I do want to grow bigger. There's more things that I want to do, and I really want people to know our brand name and just build a great place to work. So yeah, no, I mean things are going good, and I'm happy, very happy right now. But remember, that's not always how it was.
Well, and that's a big thing about entrepreneurship, right? There's going to be peaks and valleys, and it's a journey for a reason, right? It's like the stock market. It's never like an uphill battle, right? It goes up and down, up and down. It's the same thing as entrepreneurship. There might be a lot more down days in the early stages, but those peaks are so rewarding, right? And
Yeah.
you're an entrepreneur, like being able to spend 2 months in Europe with your family,
Mhm.
that's amazing, right? It's
Yeah.
like, where else can you do that? I mean, and be able to travel and still work because you have your people in place, right? And your clients are still taken care of, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really the only way that I know of. So that's why I'm here.
Awesome. So thanks a lot. I really appreciate your time. So how can listeners get a hold of you, your business, check you out in social media?
Sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, feel free to check out our website, of course, jurisdigital.com. But on Twitter, I'm just my name, Casey Meraz, CaseyMeraz. I'm always tweeting about business and SEO stuff. So if that interests you at all, feel free to follow me or reach out.
Awesome. Well, I really want to thank you for your time. I know you're a busy
Thank
person.
you. Yeah, I appreciate it.
A business owner. And I really had a lot of fun talking to you. So thanks a lot, Casey. And if you're ever north of where you are, which is, I'm in Toronto,
Yep.
hit me up and we'll hang out.
Will do. Sounds good. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Casey.
Been a lot of fun. Thanks.